Hello, my beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds. I'm Rosebud Reads, and welcome to my book garden. Welcome to the fifth stream of Peerless Book 2. Had to be like 1, 2, 3. But yes, so this is the fifth part of Peerless Book 2. Little heads up, this is a mature series, so there will be triggering things, there will be emotional things, there may be explicit things. I will be editing things a bit and I will have trigger warnings as they come, but I also have not read the series yet. So I may not be the fastest on the pickup of if this needs a trigger. I will be proactive about putting trigger warning in the title after I have finished a stream. But if you are watching this live, I cannot guarantee that there will not be triggering things occurring. So please keep that in mind as you are watching. If there are triggering things and there's an alert in the title, you will be able to find out where the trigger event happens based on the timestamps. And there will be a basic description in the description box just explaining what happened so you're not losing anything for the plot. Anyway, this is a casual stream. I actually have some goodies from a recent con I went to, so we will actually be doing those first before getting onto the book. Hello, Annika. How are you doing today? But yeah, this is a very casual stream. I will chat with myself. I will chat with the book. I will chat with my lovely book garden, like Annika. If that's not your flavor, I mean, you made it quite a bit, but I totally get it. It's not everyone's flavor. Some people just want straight reading, and I totally understand and respect that. Maybe stick around. You might enjoy it. But yeah, I'm doing pretty good, Annika. I am back to work, and it hasn't been too rough so far. People are kind of getting back into the rhythm of how things are going after spring break, and stuff's moving on like normal. I'm hoping that a stormy weather that I'm having is not going to affect the stream. So far, so good. But we will have to see. That being said, what else am I forgetting? This is not a sponsored stream. The only thing I own is the physical copy behind me and my time, and sometimes not even that. I'm not sponsored by anyone. If Seven Seas ever does sponsor me, believe me, you'll be the first one to know. All the way through my last week and a half. Oof. Hang in there. You got this, Annika. You got this. Trying to think. I am not fluent, so I will be doing my best with pronunciations, but I may mangle things a little bit. Occasionally, I'll look something up and then share a definition. I might pronounce something wrong, even in English. I'm not perfect, but I am doing my best. If you do know how to pronounce something, or if I am egregiously murdering a bit of language, I am totally open to constructive criticism in the book garden. So just let me know. I will definitely take it into mind and consideration and will not be offended. I'm trying to think of what else. I'll get to our injustices when we start reading, but I think that's about it. Now we get on to the goodies. Logistically, it should be chill since it's not like my numbers matter anymore, but I can't bring myself not to care. I realized I didn't turn on my lights. No, I get it, Annika. I totally get it. You have good work ethic, and that's important. That's a good thing. Okay. So, there's a little bit of a story for this first item. It's fantastic, period. But so I actually managed to find B-Chen, which is fantastic, and I'm super excited about that. But this is actually the second Bichen that I own. I got it actually from the same seller that happened to be at a convention nearby. And this is the second time I've bought it because the other one is actually behind that bookcase. It managed to slip behind there when I was trying to put it up and make it all fancy. And I cannot move that bookcase. And I could not get it. And so I frantically looked at this recent con and managed to find another Bichen. Like, I was getting splinters. I was starting to shake the shelf. And it's not the best condition. So if I tried to move it, I'd probably break it. And it just wasn't worth it. So this is the second Bichen. I have taped up that shelf so stuff can't fall behind it now. But it was just like, this is the last one in blue. They had a pink one, and I was like, much as I thought it would be funny to have a pink Bichen, I wanted the authenticity of it. So this was I have to get it now because it's going to bug me otherwise. And how often are you going to find Bichen? Someone also found Swabian. No. No. Well, I mean, you can find Swabian. But what's Jiang Cheng's sword's name? I can't remember. But someone who was there was a Danmei cosplay event, and they actually found it there. Same seller. And I was like, do you have like a Danmei fan that's like supplying you? Because this was $25. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, okay. Take my money. But that was the one that has one of the biggest backstories. No, it's fantastic. I mean, it's foam, but like that just means I can get it into any convention. So I am not offended. So this next one has a really cool story to it. So this is the Hope Ribbon. And hello, Momar's Rover. You came in right as I'm doing a con haul. I just was explaining the story behind Bichen, which is the second Bichen I've owned. The other one got eaten by the shelf. So I thankfully found a second one. But yeah, so that was the first March we explained. But yeah, how are you doing today, Momar's Rover? Woo, con haul. But yeah, so this is really cool. It's the Hope Ribbon Norige enamel pin. So it's got different parts to it, but I'll read the back. It's by I'm gonna open it. They explain every part of it. This is by Century Wright. They also actually have a webtoon, Honey Lemon. So go ahead and check them out. They were so sweet. Such a sweet person. There's their webtoon. Work late, but glad you got off in time for the stream. Me too. So they explain every part of it and like what it's tied to. But all the proceeds from this are going to be donated to Society for Gynecologic Oncology, SGO, and their Foundation for Women's Cancer, FWC, which help to advance research for the treatment and prevention of gynecologic cancers, provide patient-focused support and materials, as well as expand public awareness of these forms of cancer. And she's motivated as someone recently recovering from endometrial cancer in 2025 to help spread awareness and support for other patients and survivors of gynecological cancers. So the creation and sale of this pin is to give back to the community in her own way. So she actually created this to give back. And each part of it is about hope. Good luck, happiness, longevity. Integrity, beauty, enduring life, steadfast character, persistence in hardship, elegance, as well as femininity, longevity, beauty, good fortune, prosperity, and in Korean cultures, gold symbolizes wealth, high status, power, and longevity, deeply rooted in tradition as protective gift for infants. And so just so many cool things, and then explaining the traditional aspects of it. But I have a chronic condition as well, and I've actually had chemo before. So like in part, like I know how rough that can be. So going through something like that, like I felt really excited that I could give back a little bit too. So yeah, I thought that was so cool. So that's the first one. And I was super excited that she was she beat cancer, because like that's amazing. Anytime anyone is either in remission or beats something that, even just something that they've been sick with for a while, not even something as serious as cancer, but just success. Yeah, I love when I can both buy great merch and support a great cause. Yes, definitely. Okay. So next, I am going to be using this a lot more because I will definitely be outside a lot more. I got this super cool hat, which, shocker, I bought it while I was wearing my fish gear. Which, it's denim. I would swim with you in any life. Always in the best company. But here is the company. Karipango. They had some really cool stuff. I just ended up getting the hat because I'll like actually use it. But yeah, so like, I not the best hair for it today, but I can definitely see myself wearing this. I wanted to do something cutesy today. There we go. Here's the QR code for their site as well. Don't know if that'll show up. Let's do it like this. Oh, my face is in the way. There we go. So I can make it easier. Okay. So this one I thought was really cute, and I can't remember exactly what it says. But the company is Juicette. I thought it was super cute. It's like a cat bunny. It's so soft. I'm very excited about that. This one's super cool because this is actually made from a linoleum. Actually, I think it might be a wood press, but same style as linoleum press. It's by Lanny Ho. They had super cool wood press things. Oh, hi, Cookielicious. Welcome. But they had a really cool Demon Hunters, Sussy, and Derpy. So I like that it's in the classic style as both an artistic point of view, but also just like they actually carved this and then made the ink press. And I also love Sussy is being extra demonic and just the traditional style. Yeah, I'm doing a merch haul because I went to the convention this weekend. Okay. I don't actually remember which booths these are from, but I did get sucked into Silent Hill F and kind of fell in love a little bit with our foxy boy. I think Hakamura. I'm probably saying that wrong. And then I found a mini standee from a different booth. Hello, Truffle. Welcome. This one's cool. It's double-sided, so you have all the mains. But then you also have, like, who they were. Yeah. He travels. But yeah, how you doing, Truffle? How's life? I wonder why it's doing that funny thing about the high. Does anyone else see that? Oh well. Whoop! It's jumping. Nice. Yeah, he's an interesting character to me. I'm gonna put you right here for now. So this booth, this artist is Laro Pins. For the next two. Just like Silent Hill Fox Girlies, I see you. That plate this year is yellow-headed blackbirds. I've never seen them there before. Woo! Very cool. Okay. So this artist actually had a cool eraser mic pin, like eraser family. Oh, okay. This one makes it more 3D. So these are the pins. Different families, which both hurt, but also like are so sweet. Like I love it, but also pain. If you understand the lore behind. They had such a cool eraser mic pen. Oh, I definitely stand eraser mic. I almost got present mic on this side when I was doing it, but then I was like, I'm just gonna get the one. I should have done it. I totally should have done it. It was my COVID tattoo. But yeah. These are so cool. I'm gonna see if I can find a spot to like hang them. I need to figure out what to do with keychains, just because those were so cool. I could not find where I got this one from, but it's very much true. So I am definitely a Fujo and proud. Thank you. I'm finding new things to do with my hair. Because usually at this length, I just leave it down or put it in a bun or something. And I'm like, I think I could pull off pigtails. Well, not pigtails. I can't pull off pigtails. My hair gets too poofy. I was like, I can figure out buns. Thank you. We're gonna put the Fujo and Proud right here. Just started a bulletin board for all my Dame keychains. It's almost full already. Nice. Okay, so we got the Fujo. There's this one as well. Where to go? Okay. Okay. So there are 2 more stickers where I looked for where I found them because I only bought stickers. This one is really funny. It's pretty great. Weighing! Like, I hate seeing him in pain, but the expression is fantastic. It is not Lenzan's most flattering image, but it's still great. It's very cursed. And then, of course, speaking of cursed, they're just a cute one. They almost look like balloons. Yeah, Pac-Man and MDZS. Okay. So this artist makes absolutely gorgeous things. So Frogwell or Frog Out of Well on Etsy. I actually bought this one for my friend who played as Momo or cosplayed as Momo. So we have another Hikaru. The details are amazing. Love the colors. And then this I'll do as a pair because they are definitely a pair. And the image itself acts as a pair. Like it actually kind of lines up. Mm-hmm. There we go. Well, now you know where to find it, Truffle. And then I hope they'll work on a Lanzan. We have a Wei Ying. Oh, definitely. It's Frogwell. Or Frog Out of Well for their Etsy. Or their website is frogwellart.com. And then last one, I think this is one of theirs, but I could be wrong. I might be wrong. Because this looks vastly different than the rest of their work. So I think I'm probably wrong, but I couldn't find out where the rest of it was. So we'll call this question mark mystery, but it was very cute. Yeah, absolutely. I want to honor the artists as much as I can. Ah, yes. Speaking of, this is also one of theirs. It's a wooden pin. Yeah. They had a print sticker of it, but I was like, I want the pin, or I want the keychain. Okay. And then this. next one I found. So this artist does pinups, which I love. I love this. So this one, they have a very interesting business card and such. A little cheeky. It definitely is perfect. And then I did not get their card, but I did get a keychain and a sticker with a yaoi paddle, which I have been looking for years. I could just make my own, but I want to find one out in the wild. So this one's definitely going on the computer. Yeah, it's on, I think, my wallet now. It has the yaoi paddle. I was going to cons back when the yaoi paddle was a thing. It was an interesting time. Oh my gosh, I am struggling to do this. Oops, I was about to put it on backwards. Yaoi paddle. No worries. It wasn't great. It just definitely stuck out. Okay. Next, someone made a Ways to Resist pamphlet, which know your rights. Definitely a guide to protest. They do have Dungeon Mechi stuff. As well as like different things to look for. And such. So they were passing out those. And then this artist had a lot of original art stuff. So Caroline Elsner. But I got this one because it actually kind of looked like me, and I was like, that's kind of cool. Like if you squint. So I thought that was cool. It was just really pretty. Right? All right. Oh, I thought they would have put in. Oh, good. They do. So, speaking of Fujo, this is by Fruit Gravy. It's the Fujo Evening Post. They had a lot of different art styles up there, but I really enjoyed this one because it was true. I don't have a card for them, surprisingly, but their name is Fruit Gravy. They had some interesting stuff. Definitely go check them out. I looked all over trying to find who made this one. They don't have their name in the art or anything like that. They had a lot of different daddy prints. So it's daddy, but like actually in a non-questionable way. Asian parenting, how to say no to babysitting. You can't, the other dad is Gojo. Coping when the other dad is Gojo. It's okay, your kid knows you care. Maybe. Because I love Nanami. They did him so dirty. So dirty. I wish things had been different. They had a Gojo one, they had a Sukuna one. All that. Have to go reclaim some hair stuff from your brother. Speaking of cute things, so this is Tikli illustration and comics. They also have Insta, Blue Sky, Linktree. I did this, which I also love Choso. Oh, Okinawa! So you can finally have his beach vacation. I know. And then they also did this, which I like it because usually everyone does the swirly art, which I also love. I think it's a super cool design, but it's kind of cool to see them actually with color. It's a nice change. Like, he still is absolutely going through it. Like, don't get me wrong. But, like, it's pretty. Yeah. Yeah. The emotions are definitely emotioning. That they are. And then last but not least, I did end up picking up a really cool Aizawa one on book print. But I picked this one up specifically because, like, I know these are always at cons, but I picked it up because the top part was a winding sheet, which is a shroud long sheet, which I was like, that's fitting. So I thought it was pretty funny that winding sheet was the top. Why is there no pirate Danme? That's a fantastic question. You'd think, because they have a lot of water in the area, but I don't know. It's a wonderful question. Let's see. And I got a couple trinkets. There wasn't a ton of trading opportunities, but I got this cool glass. Not bead, but just chunk of glass. There was a booth that was giving away little slugs, a little bat, and a jewel. Right? I know there were documented Chinese pirates, but I don't know if they actually like acknowledging the fact. I'm not sure. I wonder if there's something culturally about that. There's not a ton of pirate animes anyway, like, I mean, other than One Piece, but like, that's One Piece. So, like, definitely, ooh, that would be a good Baihi. Oh, yes. And I also got some flowers. So I got orange, like almost carnation looking, and then a pink peony, potentially for my Weiwuxian cosplay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Ouch. That was my knee. Ouch. There were like 3 movies about the Korean naval fleet of the 1500s. All right. Okay. So it has been a while since we last read, almost a week. So I'm a little rusty. What happened? So we know. Let's see. All right. 36, 30. Yi Sun Shin does not get nearly enough acknowledgement. We are past the birthday party and ghost shenanigans. We had a trigger warning event where we found a no dungeon full of women who did not want to be there and were not in a good state. And we freed them. And we finally had Duan Shihu die. Thank goodness. But Xing Mao's faction also was taken care of by that point. And we found out that there is potentially a lot more to Miao. Miao Shi? What was her name? I know it was Miao something. Yu Sun Shin was the Korean admiral. He basically built the navy and repelled the Japanese twice. Wow. They'd go the Yojimbo route. Yes. So they were talking about the 12 assassins. And there was some sassing and flirting going on. And Chu Buchu admitted that he was part of the Chu clan of Boling, and Feng Xiao was sharp. One wave of his fan, and he connected the dots. You're a Chu. Are you a member of the Chu clan of Boling? I have neither father nor mother, courtesan name nor title, much less the heirs of someone from a powerful family. Chu Buchu's tone was indifferent. Do I look like a member of such a family to you? Feng Xiao nodded. That's true. Before Chu Buchu could say anything further, he added, in my opinion, a family of such mediocre talent as the Chu clan of Boling could never raise a man as capable as you. If anyone thinks they missed something important in between, just pop it in the book garden. But I am going to go ahead and start at 65. Okay. Chapter 65. Chu Buchu was liked by many, but hated by more. Yeah, he definitely gets instantly defensive. Although the Shuyue Bureau wasn't widely known, they enjoyed Empress Dugu's full support and thus wielded great authority. Countless people had found themselves in his hands and even more cursed him behind his back. He had a heart hard as steel. He never thought anything of it. Similarly, Feng Xiao's flattery stirred no pleasure in him. Deputy Chief Feng, whether you praise me, a certain phrase comes whenever you praise me, a certain phrase comes to my mind. When it comes to the great men of the world, only Liu Bei and Cao Cao qualify. Opposing generals from Romance Three Kingdoms, a historical war epic considered one of China's 4 great classic novels. An idiom which refers to someone with bad or insincere intentions. So this is the next one. The weasel paying the chicken a New Year's visit. Feng Xiao chuckled. Then that makes me the weasel and you the chicken. Taoist Master Chu doesn't seem to me like a chicken awaiting the slaughter. You're more like a cunning fox, seizing a win at any cost. Is that so? Said Chu. For myself, I find Deputy Chief Feng quite like a weasel. And a very flamboyant weasel at that. I could see it. I could definitely see it. Feng Xiao let such insinuations roll off his back. He never lost his temper in all their non-stop bickering. Instead, he tilted his handsome face towards Chu and said, affectionate, we joined forces in Liugong City to solve the case of the Khotanese envoy, and now we've dealt with Duan Hu and Xing Mao. Perhaps we're not bosom companions who'd lay down our lives for each other, but we can still share weal and woe. Why do you insist on pushing me away? You really are from the Chu clan of Bowling, aren't you? Chu took out brush and paper and began to write. Whether I am or not, what's it to you? He asked, without raising his head. Judging from your reaction, even if you are, you must have fallen out with them. Otherwise, why would you say you have neither father nor mother, courtesy, name, nor title? Chu raised an eyebrow, his brush never stopping. So while I was talking to Xiao Lu yesterday, you were lurking about eavesdropping, he said with the shadow of a smile. Is Deputy Chief Feng not ashamed of his ungentlemanly behavior? The corners of Feng Xiao's lips turned up. Taoist Master Chu is always thinking how to screw me over. If I don't stay on my toes, I fear one day I'll be left without even a pair of pants to my name. He looked down at the paper Chu had pushed over to him. Upon it were written the 4 lines of the letter they'd found on the Duan Hu. I think they editing error. Upon it were written the 4 lines of the letter they'd found on the Duan Hu. I think they just meant Duan Hu. But interesting. Feng Xiao nodded. A perfect replica. Where's the letter? I lost it. Chu stared at him frostily. Please, it was stained with blood from a mangled corpse. Even you must find that filthy, Feng Xiao said self-righteously. Chu heaved a sigh. Sorry, my back just started itching. Working with Feng Xiao had its advantages. When 2 men of intelligence conversed, much could be said in a few words. Feng Xiao was also an incredible martial artist. Even the foremost expert of the Khotanese foyer was helpless against him. But there were downsides as well. Feng Xiao wasn't Chu's subordinate. Chu couldn't order him around. The Jijian Bureau was equal in status to the Shu Yue Bureau. And though, given Feng Xiao's temperament, the power of the emperor himself might mean nothing to him, let alone his sister agency. He was erratic and reckless, and Chu never knew when he might be thrown to the wolves. While working with him, Chu not only had to do his job, he had to match wits with Feng Xiao and remain constantly vigilant for tricks and traps. He was forced to split his focus. It was small wonder his old cough had resurfaced after a 2-year absence. Oh, that sucks. Kind of a pause. Please let me know if the stream starts stuttering or anything. Just we're having some stormy weather right now. There might be wind, there might be things like that. So just let me know and I'll refresh the stream. Feng Xiao smiled. Don't sigh like that. If Qiao Xian overhears, she'll think I'm pushing you around again. I've read the letter, and there's nothing mysterious about the paper itself. Anything useful is contained in those lines of poetry. Didn't you say you had some ideas? Let's hear them. Okay. Thank you, Annika. Surely someone as clever as Deputy Chief Fang can solve it himself. All right, let's write down all our guesses so far and we'll trade notes. That's fair, isn't it? Very well. Each took a brush and paper and set to work. After a moment, they showed each other what they had written. The first line was, I climb Mount Jiashi in the east to behold the boundless turquoise sea. I think it refers to a place, said Feng Xiao. Mount Jiashi, where Cao Cao wrote this poem, is in Bai Ping Commandery. But if it were that simple, anyone could guess. When you just take the first and last characters, however, you get Donghai Commandery. Yeah. Also facing bad weather here, but it's fine for me. The wind is really howling. I just feel bad for my dog. He hates it when it storms. At least there's people home today, so he's not alone. Chubuchu nodded. Considering how cryptic the contents are, they must contain information about the 13 floors of Yunhai. It's 13, not 12. I've been thinking. The 13 floors of Yunhai are watertight in their dealings. They refuse to disclose their identities even to each other. Although this makes it easier to keep secrets, over time their members are more likely to turn on the organization. Look at Duan Qihu. If he'd known anyone besides Yu Hang and Feng Xiaolian, he might have taken the risk and fought for their sake. But he knew only two, one a monk and the other a woman. His doubts grew, and he balked at throwing in his lot with them. You're right. But the founder of the 13 floors must have considered this too. To put those like Duan Qihu at ease, what they needed was a cause for everyone to meet, or a chance for everyone to meet. Unfortunately, it appears Duan Qihu perished before he could attend. The third line is a poem by Shai Ling Yun, said Chubuchu. Before we could enjoy the wonders of spring, we glimpsed the approach of summer. The changing seasons weigh my chest with sighs. Hair hangs from my temples streaked with white. He wrote this in Nanting after he was demoted and sent to Yongjia County. Feng Xiao quirked a brow. There's plenty to dig into here. Yongjia, Nanting, even Shai Ling Yun's ancestral home. Any of these could be our answer. Yet none of them are. The answer is summer. Why do you say so? Asked Feng Xiao. Chubuchu smiled. Because of the next line. The river of stars runs clear and shallow. This is an ancient poem from the Han Dynasty from the anthology of works Crown Prince Xiaoming collected. Here, the poet paints a picture of the Milky Way to express their emotions. Distant lies the cowherd star, luminous shines the weaver girl. She lifts her pale and slender hand, shuttle clinking as she weaves. Alas, her work is never done, her tears pour down like rain. The river of stars run clear and shallow, what distance lies between them? The width of just a single stream, yet their love will never reach. Chubuchu continued. Then looking at the previous line again, before we could enjoy the wonders of spring summer, Zhu Ming has arrived. Zhu Ming is another word for summer, just like Jinsu for autumn. When we combine the two, it points to the 7th day of the 7th month, the day of the cowherd and weaver girls' reunion. When Chupachu spoke to Feng Xiao, it was normally with a sneer or a smile that failed to reach his eyes. It was rare for him to reveal an easy smile devoid of mockery as he did now. For a moment, his brow was smooth and his eyes content. Feng Xiao suddenly realized Chupachu wasn't bad-looking at all. Despite his sickly complexion, his eyes were clear and bright. When he looked at others, they shone. He was intimidating when his expression was frosty, but when he smiled, it was like a spring mountain, flowers and trees in radiant bloom. No wonder Bing Xian was drawn to him. I personally think Bing Xian is more giving off protective little sister vibes. Definitely not romance vibes. Or disciple vibe, definitely disciple vibes, like, don't you mess with my master. Maybe even like daughter vibes. Like, this is my master. You don't mess with him. Sister. More sister. Taoist Master Chu should really smile more, said Feng Xiao with a smile of his own. Who knows? Perhaps I'll waver and find myself growing soft towards you. You should continue being hard on me, Chubuchu said. If there comes a day when Deputy Chief Feng is suddenly obedient, I'll suspect you're plotting something. Feng Xiao sighed. Why do I even try? Protect the ailing man, right? Chubuchu had no interest in bickering. Enough, he said impatiently. What do you think, Deputy Chief Feng? Look at him. His eyes might be alluring, but his temper's awful. He loses it at the slightest thing. Small wonder his health never improves. With that attitude, anyone who falls for this invalid will find themselves chased off within 3 days. Throughout this silent criticism, his genial smile never wavered. Oh, I agree completely with your analysis. Yeah, I'd be so tempted to poke Feng Xiao with a hairpin. Chubuchu frowned. Don't you have anything to add? We have the date, but the location requires more discussion. My guess is this second line. To your side I will return if safe. If dead, my love will never fade. Must relate to the location and whether it's in Donghai Commandery. But I've got nothing at the moment. Chubuchu lowered his head, brow creasing. With such a convoluted set of clues, even if Duan Shihu thought for an age, he would never have come up with the answer. The 13 floors of Yunhai must have a key for decryption. Unfortunately, this is the only letter we have. Otherwise, I could decrypt it by comparing them. Here, Feng Xiao and Chubuchu differed. Chubuchu was fond of puzzles, but Feng Xiao never deigned to do anything difficult. If he couldn't solve it in a moment, he'd set it aside and let it solve itself. It wasn't as if the 13 floors of Yunhai could run away. Sooner or later, they'd slip up. That's kind of an awful philosophy, especially if you're in charge of an investigation bureau. Just saying. Seeing Chubuchu still immersed in thought, Feng Xiao murmured that he was going for a walk, then stood and left. Chubuchu held his forehead in silence, ruminating. Hello, Esper Lady! We haven't gotten very far. I think we're still on the first chapter, because I was showing off some merch. They're just discussing the letter that they found on Duan Chihu. Yep. Yeah, how Feng Xiao gets anything done is the real puzzle. Yeah. I mean, it probably helps that he's as powerful a martial artist as he is, so he just pushes through. Oh boy, that means there's something good coming. Feng Xiao met Jin Lian in the hall. Since they'd arrived in Xiaomo, Appa Kagan's lesser Khatun had kept a low profile. She wasn't a patient person by nature, but she understood Feng Xiao and Chu Buchu had their own business to attend to and might not be able to protect her at all times. Wary of an ambush from faux air, she hardly stepped from her room the past 10 or 15 days, and only sent the maid they'd hired from Liugong City out to inquire about the news. Yet this had also given her an opportunity to watch from the sidelines and see what these two could achieve. She hadn't expected them to turn the city upside down with a flip of their palms, fomenting a crisis that saw one giant of Qiamo dead while unseating the other. Ultimately, Xing Mao was a smarter man than Duan Hu. As soon as he understood the hopelessness of his situation, he handed over his wealth in exchange for the lives of his family. The latest gossip reported that the Emperor of Su, in a display of generosity, had already issued a decree appointing Xing Mao the Marquis of Shanshan and granting him a residence in the capital. He was permitted to travel to the capital to greet the emperor, then expected to settle down there with his family. Jin Lian was secretly glad she'd chosen to work with Feng Xiao and Chu Buchu. If these two could destabilize the entire city of Qiamo, surely they could convince Appa Kagan to side with the Su dynasty. With this, she grew a little more confident. Good day to Fen Lang Jun. Jin Lian bowed to Feng Xiao. She was still disguised as a woman from Central Plains. Though her accent was a little stiff, she learned most of the required etiquette. Feng Xiao found her clever. While the majority of her countrymen's only concern was their nomadic and marauding lifestyles, she set her sights on the far-off Central Plains. She chose to pursue an alliance with the powerful Su dynasty rather than be annexed and ruled by Ishbara. Is there anything I can do for Jin Yangzi? Feng Xiao used the alias, there we go, she'd assumed for their journey. How is Chu Xiansheng? She asked. The 8 tribes will gather in Suyab very soon. I fear if we delay our departure even a few days more, we may not make it in time. We can set off tomorrow. Wonderful, said Jin Lian happily. I left home so long ago. I can't wait to see the familiar grasslands. And when I return with the 2 of you, the Kagan will surely be pleased. After the incident with Duan Hu, Jin Lian's attitude towards them had undergone a shift. Where she'd once been distant and polite, she was now open and amiable. But Feng Xiao didn't mention it. He merely smiled. We still have a generous gift for the Kagan. Jin Yangzi will not walk away disappointed after this trip to Suyab. The statement seemed chock full of implication. Excusing herself to pack her bags, she bade farewell to Feng Xiao and went back to ponder his words. After a time, Feng Xiao returned to his own room. There was no doubt that Chu Buchu was brilliant. Feng Xiao wouldn't be surprised if he'd already unlocked all the mysteries within these poems. He'd thought to try a trick or two to drag some answers out of him, but when he pushed open the door, he was greeted by the sight of Chu Buchu with his head on the table, fast asleep. Thank God! That man deserves some sleep. When Feng Xiao had used incense of helplessness on him long before he knew Chu Buchu's identity, he'd checked this man's pulse. Chu Buchu suffered from a lack of both qi and blood. He'd likely been frail from birth, a condition worsened by the circumstances of his upbringing. Feng Xiao didn't have to be a renowned doctor to tell that he was unlikely to live long. Chu Buchu had spent the past few days exhausting his brain with calculations, then dragged his body through that secret passage. He'd been at his limit for a while. Now he'd hardly woken up, and he was back to taxing his mind with poetry. Of course he'd passed out. The sunlight outside was just right. Warm spring rays spilled down over Chu Buchu's profile, limning it with a dazzling glow. I guess illuminating it is my guess. Feng Xiao stared. He couldn't help reaching toward Chubuchu's face. His slender fingers brushed over Chubuchu's cheek, never pausing for a second. They landed right on his nose and pinched. Chubuchu was sound asleep. Though he didn't wake, his discomfort was obvious. He frowned in his sleep, then opened his mouth to breathe. Feng Xiao smiled mischievously. With his other hand, he covered Chubuchu's mouth. How will you breathe now, I wonder? What are you doing? Xiao Xian's angry shout came from the doorway. He'd been discovered so quickly. Feng Xiao clicked his tongue and regretfully let go. Chubuchu had slept through all Feng Xiao's mischief, but Xiao Xian's shout woke him. He rubbed his eyes and pushed himself up. One side of his face bore a red mark left by his arm he'd slept on. For a moment, he was completely absent the gravitas of the head of the Shu Yui Bureau. He knew no martial arts whatsoever, but made up for it with decisive and deadly tactics. Together with his exquisite mind, he rarely found himself at a disadvantage. Both Qiao Xian and Feng Xiao were well aware of this. They'd never dare underestimate him. But when they saw his bewilderment on being freshly woken, their hearts softened just a bit. Feng Xiao glanced sidelong at Chubuchu, and Qiao Xian quickly stepped forward, standing between Feng Xiao and Chubuchu like a mother hen protecting her chick, as if Feng Xiao was a man-eating cannibal. See? There's that big sister. Even little sister. This Qiao woman really was an eyesore. Perhaps Feng Xiao should think of some way to mess with her too. Feng Xiao fluttered his fan, smiling at the thought. Yes, he is definitely a little troll, and this is definitely how people get dumped in the middle of nowhere. I agree. Um, 102. $45. Okay. Oh, 2. Okay. Chapter 66. The next morning, Feng Xiao and Chubuchu set off from Qiamo to the Western Khaganate's capital in Suyab, where Appa Khagan awaited. Gao Yi had offered to personally see them off, but Chubuchu declined. They were still a group of only 4 with a heavy responsibility. Making a spectacle of their departure was inadvisable. The upheaval in Qiamo had exposed their identities. They'd gained a new enemy in the 13 floors of Yunhai, and the issue of Fo'er remained unresolved. Their journey through the mountains would be long and arduous, and escorting Jin Lian safely back to the Gokturk court, they expected, would be rife with challenges. Yet it wasn't so. They departed Qiamo and arrived in Kucha, where they rested a few days before continuing toward Suyab near Mount Sanmi. As they reached the foot of the mountain, they could see the Gokturk wolf riders galloping in the distance. These were the lands of the capital. The entire journey had been uneventful, devoid of any danger. Even Jin Lian felt things were going rather too smoothly. She turned to Chubuchu. Has Fo'er given up on killing me? Until we stand before Appa Khagan, it's too early to say. Tell me, what's Appa Khagan like? The Shuiyui Bureau had its own information channels, but they couldn't compare to Jin Lian, who lived at Appa Khagan's side. Few in the world knew Appa better than she did. There was a long silence before Jin Lian answered. He's actually a bit of a buffoon. Chupu raised a brow. Those in the Shu Yue Bureau had heard much about Apakagan, mostly from the people around him. The most common assessment was that Apakagan was mistrustful, calculating, and envious of others. Other testimony came from Han prisoners of war who had narrowly escaped the jaws of death and returned to the Central Plains. In their words, he was a bloodthirsty demon who loved only battle. It's a little different than a buffoon, in my opinion. Jin Lian had said nothing about Apakagan on their way here, but at Chubachu's prompting, she began to speak. There are many Gokturk tribes, so there are likely many Kagans. Think of the spring and autumn or warring states period of your Central Plains. The nations are scattered and independent, and skirmishes between tribes are common. The Kagan today might be replaced with a new one tomorrow, and no one would bat an eye. But with tribes and unify the Gokturks, Apakagan too is aware of this. But with Ishbar's rise, he's demonstrated his intent to annex the surrounding tribes and unify the Gokturks. Apakagan too is aware of this. There are plenty of ways to kill without drawing a blade, and the people at Apakagan's side are constantly changing. That is such a high-class level way of thinking, because in anarchy or in periods of unrest, a lot of times the people that actually end up killing an unjust leader or a suspicious leader are not actually someone coming at you from the front, but someone working from behind, as in your advisor, your minister, your servant, in Poison. Historically. So the fact that there are plenty of ways to kill without drawing a blade, and the people at Apakagan's side are constantly changing. So that line expresses that fantastically. Chubuchu nodded. He had heard this as well. Jinlian sighed. The Kagan has a wild imagination. Before I left for the Central Plains, he asked me to train a group of female bodyguards for him. He said women are more loyal and reliable than men, so they could keep him safe in my absence. Feng Xiao gave her a strange look. Is your Kagan a lustful man? Everyone loves beauty, from kings to commoners. Why should the Kagan be an exception? She asked. Though Jinlian Khatun retained her charm, her brow and eyes were marked by wind and frost. However greatly she was valued for her insight and assistance, she was ultimately still his concubine and worried his favor would fade along with her beauty. A good portion of this endeavor had likely been Jin Lian's idea in the first place. She had taken the initiative to court the Su dynasty on Apakagan's behalf at great risk to her own safety. Training these female guards might secure his affection, and they would also serve as her eyes and ears. With this, Chubuchu had a rough picture. Apakagan was a man of middling talent, with an appetite for beautiful women and deep suspicion towards others. Both the eastern and western Kaganates were home to many tribes, each occupying their own territories. When Ishbara had emerged as a dominant force, Apakagan had never considered how to overcome him. Instead, he'd waffled between Ishbara and the Su dynasty. Even if he'd once harbored some small ambition, time had worn it away. Persuading a man like him to join the Su dynasty shouldn't be difficult, provided he was too thoroughly cowed to consider betrayal. The meeting between the 8 tribes would convene in just a few days. Chubuchu would see that they made good use of it. He was still thinking when a group of the riders galloped over and intercepted them. The Gokturk soldier at the head seemed surprised to see Jin Lian. He quickly dismounted to pay his respects with a bow. Jin Lian nodded back. She sat high atop her horse, lofty and arrogant, devoid of the warmth she'd shown Chu and Feng Xiao on their journey. But after exchanging a few words with the patrol, Jin Lian frowned in anger. She raised her voice with questions, and the Gokturk saluted and apologized, yet still surrounded Chu and the rest, drawing their long sabers. It certainly didn't look like they had come to welcome distinguished guests. Chu translated for Feng Xiao and Xiao Xian. "They're arresting us," Jin Lian said we're her honored guests from the Central Plains and asked them to retort to the Kagan. They said the Kagan has issued an order. No Central Plainsman may enter the encampment. Jin Lian's face was dark with fury. If the Sioux envoy she'd toiled to bring all this way took offense at this treatment and became their enemies instead, not only would her long journey have been in vain, she'd have forfeited her honor and good word. Neither Chu nor Feng Xiao were easygoing men. If the Gokturks slighted them, they might wreak untold havoc. Duan Chihu's fate was fresh in Jin Lian's mind. She had no similar death wish. She turned to Chu and Feng Xiao. "I must apologize sincerely to both of you. I had no idea the Kagan would give such an order. Even on pain of death, I swear you'll suffer no humiliation. Please wait here. I'll speak to the Kagan myself, then personally return to invite you in." "Before the Khatun leaves, tell us, has the Kagan always treated Central Plainsmen with such wariness?" Chubuchu asked. Jin Lian shook her head. "I traveled to the Central Plains with the Kagan's express approval. You saw the letter yourself. It was no forgery." Yeah, these two do get arrested everywhere they go. "In that case, something must have happened after you left to change the Kagan's mind. Khatun, your sincerity is plain to us all. We will wait here for you." Jin Lian had feared his censure. Now she breathed a sigh of relief. She quickly apologized once more and turned to scold the soldiers, to their evident displeasure. They eyed Chu and the others, then nodded reluctantly, apparently agreeing to leave them be. With Jin Lian riding snugly in their midst, they returned to the Kagan's court. An hour later, Chu, Feng Xiao, and Xiao Xian spied soldiers cantering toward them. Their faces were unfamiliar. This was a different group from before, and Jin Lian was not among them. "Was there a mutiny?" Feng Xiao mused. "Do you think the old Kagan died and a new one took his place, so the alliance was voided and Jin Lian lost her authority?" "The Jijian Bureau receives intelligence from every corner of the land. Does Deputy Chief Fang really need to ask me this question?" Feng Xiao shrugged. "Hundreds of documents fly back and forth in the Jijian Bureau every day. I'm not like Taoist Master Chu, who remembers everything he reads once. Things slip through the cracks. I had planned to return to the capital after dealing with the Khotanese envoy. How was I to know you'd abduct me instead?" He deftly shifted the blame to Chu. "Appa Kagan has 2 sons," said Chu. "His eldest, Yi Shun, was born to his first Khatun. As for his second, Adi, his mother is unknown. She was likely from a humble background and passed away long ago. The Gokturks value strength above all. It's not uncommon for sons to usurp their fathers or a younger brother to depose the elder. But Appa Kagan is a cautious man. As far as I know, neither son holds much power. You see how he values Jin Lian, though she bore him no sons. I find that very telling." "So neither of his sons pose a threat," said Feng Xiao. "I wouldn't say that. They say Appa dotes on his younger son and scorns his elder. He believes his elder cowardly, lacking the wolf-like nature of the Gokturks." They fell silent as the Gokturk group reached them, splitting in two and encircling Chubuchu's party. The leader barked out orders in Turkic, his expression ferocious. Chubuchu remained cool and indifferent as he replied in kind. After the brief exchange, Feng Xiao heard Chubuchu's rapid whisper. Defeat them, but don't kill them. Grab the leader. We're charging straight into the capital. Just the three of us. Are we not sheep wandering into a den of wolves? With Deputy Chief Feng here, who else qualifies as a wolf? Chubuchu hissed. Feng Xiao burst into laughter. Now that's what I like to hear. The last word was scarcely out of his mouth before he appeared in front of a Gokturk soldier. Startled, the soldier yanked back on the reins, his horse's hooves rearing to trample Feng Xiao to death, as if Feng Xiao would give him the chance. His figure flickered, and the soldier screamed. In the blink of an eye, he tumbled from his saddle. Xiao Xian waited until he saw him move to follow suit. She was no less valiant than he, but she also had to protect Chubuchu. These Gokturk soldiers might be strong enough to plunder ordinary folk of the Central Plains, but they were no match for Feng Xiao or Xiao Xian. Within minutes, the entire group was strewn across the ground, their leader dangling in Feng Xiao's grasp like a helpless chick. Now, let's go cause some mayhem. Deputy Chief Feng was bubbling over with enthusiasm, as if a chaos-free world were his only fear. Things should go much more smoothly with a few hostages in hand. And it happened that the leader of this group was no common soldier, but a Yabgu, a position of similar status to a prime minister or general. I probably said that wrong. All right, let's see. Yabgu. Yabgu. All right, let's see how to say it. Yehu. Jabgu. Okay, but I want to see how to say it. I need to know how to say it. Pronunciation, there we go. Yabgu. Oh, I said it right! Yabgu! Yay! I actually did it right. I'm proud of myself. Yabgu. Okay. A position of similar status to a prime minister or general. Keeping a tight grip on their captive, the group proceeded towards the encampment to request a meeting with the Kagan. Those who met them were shocked and enraged, but there was nothing they could do but rush ahead and report. Not half an hour later, they stood within the royal yurt, facing the illustrious Appa Kagan. The Kagan was between 40 and 50 years of age, his beard full and his black hair streaked with white. Perhaps it was due to age that he hunched in his seat and had a habit of squinting when he looked at people. Jin Lian, who stood at his side, shone with with 100-fold more vigor and spirit. If she'd become Kagan of the Western Khaganate instead, perhaps Chubuchu's group wouldn't have encountered so many problems. But it was the way of the world that men came first. No matter how lofty Jin Lian's aspirations, she could achieve them only through Appa. Central Plainsmen, why do you hold my minister hostage? Appa Kagan snarled, watching them through narrowed eyes. Gokturk princes and officials filled the Kagan's spacious yurt. Save for Jin Lian, all glared balefully at the group in the center. Chubuchu and Feng Xiao glimpsed an old acquaintance among them. Faux Air sat right beneath Apakagan, eyeing them expressionlessly. A woman with Han features poured wine for the nobles in the yurt, her head and lashes lowered. She dared not risk a glance up. Ah! A sudden cry of pain cut the tense atmosphere. The Han slave had been kicked in the stomach and sent flying. She groaned on the ground, then struggled, trembling to stand, terrified of provoking the nobleman who had kicked her again. "Lowly bastards from the Central Plains, I'll crush you like ants," growled the young Gokturk noble who'd kicked her. He glanced at Chubuchu, his smile full of malice. Jinlian hadn't been captured as they'd assumed. She'd changed into fresh robes, her dress stately and without flaw. But a hint of anxiety hovered around her eyes when she looked at them, as if she had much to say but couldn't speak. Perhaps this will be a bit more challenging than expected, Chubuchu thought. Found the problem! It's faux air. That's right, Truffle. Alright, chapter 67. 121. Chapter 67. If we didn't take him hostage, would Appa Kagan be willing to see us? Chubuchu asked. The Kagan sent Jinlian Khatun to the Central Plains to treat with us. We have come in good faith as representatives of Great Sioux, yet this is how the Kagan greets us. Truly, it chills the heart. Who sent Jinlian? Bellowed Appa Kagan. The whole thing was her idea. If not for these guests with me who've come from so far, I'd punish her severely today. His gaze seemed to drift toward Foer, who lowered his head and drank his tea. When Chubuchu saw this, everything became clear. Something had happened before their arrival. Now they knew what. Foer had beat them here and bribed or intimidated Appa Kagan. The fearful Kagan had capitulated, not daring to offend the foremost Gokturk martial artist. On seeing Chubuchu's company and their apparent lack of manpower, he'd compared the two parties and picked the most advantageous side. The Kagan fears offending Ishbar, said Chubuchu coldly. Does he not fear offending the Sioux dynasty? A mere 3 of you? Another voice sneered. And you think you speak for the Sioux dynasty? If the people of the Central Plains are all so weak and useless, we have nothing to be afraid of. The lesser Khatun has obviously been deceived by you. Perhaps you seduced her into agreeing to lead you here. The speaker was the young Gokturk nobleman who'd cursed them earlier. For him to be sitting in the Kagan's yurt at his young age, he had to be someone extraordinary. The son of Appa Kagan or a nephew. That he'd received no censure for kicking the female slave was a similar mark of his status. He'd clearly intended it as a threat. As the saying went, he'd made a show of killing the chicken to scare the monkey. Unfortunately, Chubuchu was no monkey, and neither was Feng Xiao. Before the young man had finished speaking, Feng Xiao was already rushing toward him. Foer had been watching them carefully all this time. He didn't stand by. He dashed over to intercept Feng Xiao's attack. The two of them were soon engaged in an all-out brawl within the yurt. True chi surged and swelled, overturning cups and plates. The bystanders paled in fright and retreated to the side of the yurt, yet Appa Kagan gave no order to stop. It seemed he wished to see who was stronger before making his decision. Feng Xiao shook his sleeves, and a table beside him was flung into the air, spinning towards the outspoken Gokturk nobleman. In a panic, the young man trod on his own robe and stumbled to the floor. Foer neither blinked nor turned as he sent a blast of true chi from his palm. The table cracked in two midair, saving the nobleman from grievous injury. Foer had failed to defeat Feng Xiao in Luogong City, but he was still a powerful martial artist. Even if he fell short of Feng Xiao's skill, they were well matched. Too many parties had been involved at the time, forcing Foer to split his focus. Now he brought his full strength to bear, and his profound internal energy and imperious style consumed Feng Xiao's total attention. The young man, seeing that he was no longer in danger from Feng Xiao, glanced towards Chubuchu on the sidelines and sneered. He waved a hand for his men to seize both Chubuchu and Qiao Xian. He'd obviously never been to the Central Plains and didn't know an unwritten rule of its martial circles. When it came to women who wandered the Jianghu, the more beautiful they appeared, the less one should provoke them. Hell yeah! The guards who had pounced toward Chubuchu found themselves rolling on the floor, their reward for underestimating Qiao Xian. To subdue a mob, one must first capture its leader. She had learned this principle well from Chubuchu and swept without hesitation toward the Gokturk noble. The noble saw a blur, then felt sharp pain in his arm as the world began to spin. The next thing he knew, his face was pressed to the ground. A slender foot, more delicate than that of the average Gokturk woman, crushed him to the floor. In other circumstances, the young man might have grabbed at and caressed such a foot, but he didn't dare entertain the thought now. This foot was terrifyingly strong. Yep, it definitely is like the more colorful an animal is, the more likely they are to be venomous. Yes. This foot was terrifyingly strong. He couldn't break free no matter how he struggled. If anything, it pressed down harder, mashing his face into the rug. Agonized tears seeped into the carpet as he cursed her up and down, but it was all false bravado. In this position, he wasn't intimidating in the least. Yeah, I agree, Truffle. Qiao Xian didn't speak much Turkic, but she could hear the venom in his voice. She bent and yanked on his arms, making his face twist in pain as he pleaded with Appa Kagan for help. This man had belittled and mocked them, calling the Central Plainsmen lowly trash. Now he was howling on the ground, not unlike the female slave he had abused. That's right. Right. Stop! Appa Kagan finally roared. Gokturk soldiers brandishing swords rushed into the royal yurt but dared not approach. Feng Xiao and Foer were still fighting. You claim to have come as guests, said Appa Kagan angrily. Is this the behavior of guests? Aren't you Gokturks of the opinion that might makes right? We're simply following your example while in your lands, said Chubuchu indifferently. When you're ready to receive us, we can sit down for a proper discussion. Yeah, she is gorgeous, especially when she's angry. In the center of the yurt, the two martial arts masters never paused. Other than Appa Kagan and Jin Lian, the Kagan some distance away and surrounded by guards, the Khatun still keeping her composure, the rest had either fled the royal yurt in fear or were cowering in a corner to avoid becoming a casualty themselves. Only Chubuchu remained in place, proud and unbending. Despite his sickly complexion, he showed no hint of weakness, standing as straight and tall as a young pine within this den of wolves. Appa Kagan sputtered with fury and alarm, hesitating over whether to call for his guards to seize Chubuchu. The man seemed to have glimpsed his thoughts because he spoke first. My companions will have their hands around your neck before they can take a step forward. What do you think? Are your people faster or mine? Would you like to make a bet? Your life against mine. Appa Kagan had no interest in gambling his precious life. Realizing he had no chance of victory, he shouted, Stop! Both of you are my honored guests! Let there be no conflict between you. Tomorrow there will be a contest at the 8 Tribes Conference. Our guests are welcome to decide the victor then. Feng Xiao and Foer sprang apart, landing on opposite sides as they stared at each other without expression. Despite Foer's outward composure, his blood was pumping, and it took him a moment to smooth his harried breath. One sleeve had been torn, leaving a shallow wound. Feng Xiao's sleeve had also lost a corner, but he remained calm and relaxed. Other than a few new wrinkles creasing his clothes, he looked no different than before. In this battle, it seemed Feng Xiao had come out on top. The Kagan's son called us lowly bastards from the Central Plains. How did we return to being honored guests? I carry with me a document penned by the Emperor of Great Su himself, and we arrived in the name of peace between our nations. If the Kagan allows his son to assault us without apology, he can't blame us for finding it unacceptable. Chubuchu's manner was haughty. He refused to give Appa Kagan any out. Instead, he kept pushing, demanding an apology from the young man presently under Qiao Xian's boot. The moment he called for help, Chubuchu had known he must be Appa Kagan's youngest son, Adi. Appa Kagan was furious, but he couldn't leave his son to be humiliated. This group possessed incredible martial arts. He couldn't afford to be ruthless. Even if he chose to fight, the Central Plainsmen would likely walk out unscathed. Adi, apologize to our honored guests. You were first at fault. I won't! Prince Adi's bluster was squashed as Qiao Xian ground his face into the rug. He was used to throwing his weight around. He treated even Jin Lian like she was nothing. Though the Khatun had remained quiet throughout, she couldn't help the gleeful "serves him right" that came to mind. Prince Adi had no choice but to apologize, albeit indignantly. When Qiao Xian finally lifted her foot, several guards stepped forward to help him up. Burning with shame, he sent a vicious glare towards Chubuchu's group before storming out of the yurt. Appa Kagan forced a smile. The Shuli tribe decided to send a representative to the 8 Tribes Conference, but now we have honored guests from the Central Plains to fill their place. It will surely be a conference to remember. This place is no longer fit to sit in. Everyone, please go and rest. We'll be honored to host you at our banquet later tonight. At this moment, a servant entered and stooped to whisper something into Appa Kagan's ear. The Kagan paled, then shot a glance at Foer. These guests from the Central Plains arrived unexpectedly. Seems we're short on accommodation, so our new guests must stay next to Foer Xiansheng. Does Foer Xiansheng have any objections? Since the Kagan made the arrangements, said Foer, I naturally must accept. A short time later, they found themselves in a lavishly appointed yurt. It seemed Appa Kagan had no intention of slighting them. After such a shock, he was done stirring up trouble. Still, Qiao Xian worried that the Gok Turks would ambush them during the night. Their hosts had greater numbers. Even if she went all out, she might not be able to guarantee Chubuchu's safety. Yeah, it's totally gonna go so well, Truffle. Can't see how it couldn't, right? Still, Feng Xiao, on the other hand, seemed entirely at ease. He merely asked Qiao Xian to inquire whether they really was nowhere else to stay in the royal capital, but here, right next to Foer's lodgings. Qiao Xian returned with a plate of cut melon, supposedly a gift from the first prince. He also asked her to deliver a message. If the honored guests were uncomfortable where they were, he would be happy to host them. So this is the older son. The wealth of the Gok Turks was modest compared to the aristocracy of the Central Plains, but it didn't stop their upper class from indulging themselves. Their group's yurt wasn't as expansive as the royal one, but it was still spacious. Thick wool rugs cushioned their feet, and beds had been placed along the sides. Colorful woolen tapestries hung on the walls, and the bronze tea service on the table was inlaid with gold and turquoise. It was clearly from the western regions, though whether it had been purchased or stolen was impossible to tell. Feng Xiao took a seat and reclined against a pillow as he listened to Qiao Xian recite the first prince's message. Then there's no need to worry. Seeing her look of puzzlement, he sighed at Chubuchu. You called Pei Jingzi stupid, but yours aren't much brighter. Oh, we also missed the injustice of service workers when that serving girl got kicked. So that one is now at 5, 10, 15, 20, 22. Instead of putting your energy toward healing your injuries, Deputy Chief Feng insists on idle chatter, said Jubuju indifferently. Do you believe yourself invincible? To think you pay such close attention to me, said Feng Xiao with a smile. You noticed. Only then did Qiao Xian realize Feng Xiao was a little pale. Feng Xiao untied his sash, exposing his shoulder. It bore a dark red mark, obviously Foer's handiwork. Martial arts practitioners protected their bodies with true qi. Any injury that left a mark without an open wound came from internal damage. Foer managed to hurt you? Qiao Xian asked in surprise. She'd sensed Foer had grown a little stronger since their last encounter, but as she hadn't fought him personally, she couldn't be certain. If he'd injured Feng Xiao, it appeared her instincts were correct. Feng Xiao retained his blithe attitude. I don't imagine he's much better off. He definitely had to swallow back some blood there. He's putting on a brave face, but he'll have aggravated his internal injury. I'm sure he's also busy recuperating. After saying his piece, he finally closed his eyes to tend to his injuries. So there are other suitable accommodations, yet Appa Kagan placed us next to Foer, said Chubuchu. He wishes to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight before deciding whom to ally with. That man is a scoundrel, Qiao Xian fumed. Before, Jin Lian... Actually, and though we were in a bind, Jin Lian never spoke up for us. None of these gawk Turks are trustworthy at all. We still have opportunities, said Jubuchu. Tomorrow is the start of the 8 Tribes Conference. We must make an impressive showing. Not only to defeat Foer, every tribe must know the people of the Central Plains are not to be trifled with. The stronger we appear, the more respect we'll command. Minutes later, Jin Lian Khatun, the untrustworthy Gokturk, came knocking. Before they could say a word of greeting, she blurted, You're really in trouble now! 1 second. Right. 37:30. Okay, chapter 68. Xiao Xian's face darkened. Why does the cartoon say so? Jin Lian realized she'd misspoken. She rescued her calm and inclined her head in apology. My agitation got the better of me. Please forgive me. She even bowed like a woman from the Central Plains. Chubuchu waved an airy hand. We're all in the same boat. Anything that harms us harms you, so you needn't be so polite, Khatun. First, tell us why the change in your Kagan's attitude. Does Foer terrify him so much? It's a long story, said Jin Lian. I told you the Kagan asked me to train a group of women to serve as his guards. Those women weren't particularly strong, but they were more cautious than any man. After they managed to help the Kagan through a certain crisis, he trusted them deeply. But while I was in the Central Plains, one of the women tried to assassinate the Kagan and almost succeeded. I'm told the assassin confessed that her father was a Han, while her mother was a Gokturk. Her father was killed by the Kagan's men, so she loathed the Gokturks. She purposely infiltrated the guards and waited for an opportunity to kill him. Jin Lian paused, smiling bitterly. The Kagan killed the rest of the guards I trained in a fit of rage, and blame for the incident fell on me. Upon my return, I found myself detained. The Greater Khatun pleaded my case to stop the Kagan from punishing me. This was why I was unable to return for you earlier. What does that have to do with us? Asked Qiao Xian coldly. Though they numbered only 3, they were representatives of the Su dynasty. As long as Appa Kagan was still of sound mind, he would never offend an envoy of Su simply out of anger with Jin Lian over the matter of some guards. Jin Lian sighed. You've seen that the Kagan has 2 sons, neither of them mine. The eldest was born to the greater Khatun. I have a good relationship with her and her son, but the Kagan prefers his youngest, Adi, the one who insulted you earlier. I wish to cooperate with the Su dynasty, but Adi believes the Hans cannot be trusted. He shows me little respect. He's much closer to the conservative nobles of our tribe. I'm sure he took advantage of my absence to pour poison in the Kagan's ear. As you Hans say, words can twist even metal. Perhaps the Kagan brushed him off at first, but as time passed without me here, the Kagan started to believe him. I could tell the Kagan was more distant on my return. Chubachu frowned. Khatun, don't tell me you've been fighting alone all this time without even an ally or subordinate willing to speak up for you to the Kagan. I share a friendship with the greater Khatun and her son. As I said, I have her to thank for the Kagan's temporary pardon. As for my subordinates, I have several who worked in and around the Kagan's yurt or by his side. But when I returned, I found all of them had been removed for various offenses. There isn't a single one left. Jinlian's mouth was set in a grim line. She was reluctant to reveal her vulnerabilities, but she understood that if she didn't speak now, Chubachu's company would distrust her, and she'd lose any chance to redeem herself. Before I left, though the Kagan favored Prince Adi, he listened to what I had to say. I never imagined Adi would gain so much ground so quickly. Now the Kagan listens to all his counsel. On top of that, Fawer beat us here. He must have offered Appa something tempting for him to lean toward Ishbara. Chubachu pondered this. But earlier, Feng Xiao came out the victor in the scuffle with Fawer, and Xiao Xian taught Adi a lesson of his own. If Appa Kagan is thinking clearly, he must know he needs to reweigh the pros and cons. The Kagan believes the first prince and I are on your side. If I speak for you, it will only serve to anger him further. But my subordinates will do all they can to provide you with assistance. Can you put us in contact with the greater Khatun and her son? Asked Chubachu. Jin Lian understood at once. Chu Xiansheng wishes to form an alliance with them? It won't work. Why not? I've tried. Though the greater Khatun spoke for me this time, she ignores external affairs and spends her days weaving her woolen rugs. Prince Yi Shun is timid, much like his mother. They don't act like Gokturks at all. They're more like Southerners from the Central Plains. She paused, realizing she'd put her foot in her mouth. Though the North and South stood divided, such derogatory words were obviously not fit for the ears of anyone from the Central Plains. Perhaps that wasn't the best comparison, she added quickly. None of the three minded. Jin Lian was normally a calm and rational person. To vent like this, blurting things that wouldn't help resolve their problem, she must have been truly desperate. Then are you saying there's no chance to turn things around? Asked Chubachu. Not necessarily. You said it yourself. You caused a scene just now and arranged the Kagan. But he also witnessed your strength and doesn't dare decide rashly. I heard that after you left, Foer tried to see him and was turned away at the door. Tomorrow we're meeting with the nations and tribes who are our allies among the Western Gokturks, but there will be contests of horsemanship and archery. The countries of the Western regions love sport, not literature. If Finling Jun prevails in the competition, I will try persuading the Kagan again. He may change his mind. Don't you find it suspicious that one of your trained guards tried to assassinate the Kagan? Asked Chubachu. This incident happened just after you left the Khaganate, and when you returned, your people were dead. You've lost the eyes and ears you had around the Kagan, along with his trust. I agree, said Jinlian, and I suspect Adi is responsible. But there's no evidence, and the dead cannot speak. I have no way to investigate. Apart from the greater Khatun and her son, are there no other nobles who hold a high position yet are unwilling to participate in the conflict between you two? Any who would speak up before the Kagan. The Kagan's mother, perhaps, or any other elders? Yes, said Jinlian, though it's not a family member. It's the Black Moon Shaman. Oh, hello, depressed galactic drifter. Oh, you're watching a scary movie. Which one? The Gokturks, of course, had their own gods. However backward or primitive their religious practices appeared to those from the Central Plains, the Gokturks themselves were pious, and their tribes had great shamans capable of communicating with the gods. The Kagan would never share his authority, so these shaman took no part in decision-making unless the Kagan specifically sought their opinion. Oh, okay. Any good? Still, every Gokturk tribe, from large to small, had a shaman of this kind. The Black Moon Shaman was aged and spent most of his time in seclusion. An audience with him was no easy feat, but Chubachu suggested Jinlian pay him a visit. Even if they were unable to win him over, they might still ask him to put in a few good words with the Kagan. As for gifts, Jinlian had brought several treasures back from the Central Plains, all purchased from Lian Lang Pavilion. Though they were few, they were valuable, surely capable of swaying the Black Moon Shaman. Oh, interesting. Time was short if they wanted to see him today. It would soon be dark. Jinlian stood and bade them farewell, then left to seek the shaman. The door had hardly swung shut behind her when someone arrived claiming to be the first prince's attendant, sent to ask how the honored guests were adjusting to their lodgings. Chubuchu called to the attendant to wait outside, then turned to Feng Xiao. Quick! Tear open my clothes, climb on top of me, and molest me. Not expecting that. Feng Xiao was dumbfounded. Had Chubuchu gone mad? But his expression was entirely serene, as if Feng Xiao had hallucinated his last words. Before Feng Xiao could respond, Chubuchu grew impatient and made the first move. He mussed his clothes and loosened his hair, then sprawled on the carpeted ground. He gave his neck a couple of hard pinches for good measure. Have they turned red? He asked in a low voice. Feng Xiao had begun to grasp Chubuchu's plan. This was a risky situation, fraught with danger. Yet Feng Xiao wasn't nervous at all. He was greatly amused. That he was experiencing with Chubuchu only made it more entertaining. Without further ado, he climbed atop Chubuchu and was immediately greeted with pain cries. No, not there, not here, ah! Chubuchu's voice rose and fell, twisted and turned, slightly breathless and certain to cause misunderstandings. Feng Xiao's mouth twitched as he watched Chubuchu throw himself into the performance. Hearing the commotion, the man outside tossed open the door flap and rushed inside. He stared at Chubuchu and Feng Xiao in shock. Faking embarrassment and anger, Chubuchu shoved Feng Xiao aside with one hand, stumbling upright, and pointed at the attendant with his other. Hey, you! Get the hell out! He yelled in Turkic. And yes, that is definitely another count, possibly 2 for the shameless. That's going to be 2. 2 counts for the shamelessness counter, which makes us 15. We are definitely leveling up the slander, and there is even a picture. Oh, Feng Xiao, I think you're having a realization. Oh boy. That poor attendant. Actually, I think that's going to be another injustice to service workers. Definitely gay chickening too close to the sun. Yep. That blush is for real. Okay. 149.45. 45. Come on, pen. You can work. Chapter 69. Nice. The attendant had merely been sent to deliver a message. He hadn't expected to stumble upon such a scene. He remained rooted to the spot, staring blankly. It wasn't until Chubachu shouted that he came to his senses. Prince Shun ordered me to bring you this fruit, he stammered. Do the two honored guests require anything? Feng Xiao didn't look up. He waved him off the way one might swat a fly. No, leave it and go. He grabbed Chubachu's clothes, a ferocious smile spreading across his face. I've been denying myself the entire journey. You won't get away today. Chubachu suspected Feng Xiao was using this farce to exact his revenge. While he didn't seem to be using much strength, Chubachu's arms were so sore where Feng Xiao held them, they seemed about to fall off. He gritted his teeth and whispered he doesn't understand Chinese. Oh, said Feng Xiao. Then hurry up and say, no, no, in Turkish. Chubachu was speechless. And that's another one. He tried to kick Feng Xiao in the groin, but Feng Xiao caught his legs easily, holding them down and spreading them as he pressed their bodies together shamelessly. Suggestively. Sorry. Feng Xiao blinked down at him. How's this? Realistic enough for you? This was going above and beyond, transforming pretense into reality. Chubachu held his breath, bringing a flush to his wan and sickly face. In a voice that quivered slightly, he said in Turkic, Please return to your prince and tell him I will personally bring him my thanks later tonight. Perhaps the intendant understood, or perhaps he didn't. Either way, he stammered a few disoriented words of assent before taking to his heels. This just gets more embarrassing for everyone as it goes on. The instant he was gone, Chubachu shoved Feng Xiao off. That will do. You got it the wrong way around, said Feng Xiao. Chubachu quirked an inquisitive eyebrow. Compare our appearances and abilities. If I wish to force you, I have hundreds of ways to render you motionless in an instant. I'd have no trouble taking what I wanted. Such a dramatic, prolonged scene would only be possible in one instance. If you were the one molesting me, and I was the one feigning reluctance. Next time, you should be the one holding me down, and I'll be the one who shouts no. And we got another one. Face devoid of expression, Chubachu said, There will be no next time. The attendant will undoubtedly report what he saw to the first prince. You want him to mistake us for cut sleeves. Why? Chubachu spoke each word deliberately. Because the first prince is a cut sleeve himself. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that is switch behavior right there. Sounds like he wouldn't mind. Oh, Feng Xiao's brow rose in surprise. The Kagan's yurt had been crowded and Feng Xiao's attention had been on Foer and the other threats present. He'd pegged at least two besides Foer as first-tier martial artists. But Chubachu's focus had been elsewhere. He'd watched everyone's faces for the most minute reactions. Thanks to his eidetic memory, he could recall subtle movements even the person themselves might miss. You better hope Chubachu's subordinates don't hear about this. Yeah. From the moment we arrived, the first prince was completely taken by your looks. His eyes were glued to you the entire time, but the attendant behind him, the same one who just entered, kept looking between you and the first prince. I'd say he looked resentful. The attendant was a Gokturk as well, a young and handsome one at that. By contrast, the first prince was in his 30s, with fine lines at the corner of his eyes and hair and a beard that aged him further. His face had a look of deep unhappiness and early decline. Well, that's a little rude. Not a man and a woman, but two men far apart in age. Had Chubachu not pointed it out, Feng Xiao would never have considered the possibility. Still, it wasn't so strange if one gave it a moment's thought. Lechers had always existed. If some of them loved women, it stood to reason that others loved men. And there were certainly nobles and dignitaries all over the Central Plains, north and south, who didn't discriminate. The Gok Turks were only human. It wasn't odd to find a cut-sleeve first prince. You know what? Some days I feel so ancient, Annika. You know, like, yeah, and because people in their 30s are so ancient. Some days it feels like it. I do appreciate how oddly accepting that paragraph was. Like, it wasn't so strange if one gave it a moment's thought. Lechers had always existed. If some of them loved women, it stood to reason that others loved men. And there were certain nobles and dignitaries all over the Central Plains, north and south, who didn't discriminate. The Gok Turks were only human. It wasn't odd to find a cut sleeper. Like, that is oddly, like, chill about things, considering censorship and everything. Like, kind of love that. Like, lech equally, right? Perverts be perverts, no matter what their preference. There you go. When the meeting adjourned, the attendant followed right behind the first prince. I'd noticed something between them earlier. We support gay rights and gay wrongs. There you go, Annika. I like it. When the meeting adjourned, the attendant followed right behind the first prince. I'd noticed something between them earlier, so I was watching closely. When the attendant thought no one was looking, he secretly reached for the first prince's hand. The prince didn't shake him off either. After that, I was certain. Cut sleeves aren't unusual, but in the land of Gok Turks, they value martial strength, not scholars with literary talent. The first prince is introverted and melancholic. He has no skill in governance, and his brother bests him in martial arts. If it gets out that he likes men as well, it's likely to be the end of him. Correct, said Chubachu. In fact, perhaps this is the very reason Appa Kagan disdains his son. Feng Xiao understood. So, you're saying the attendant will report us to the prince, and that will increase his goodwill towards us. That's true, he's a Gok Turk, and the second only to the Kagan in terms of position. But because of his proclivities, he's forced to hide. He cannot commiserate with his equals. He's like a foreign species amid a pack of wolves. A life like this is hard on the heart. If he sees there are others like him, two of them, in fact, how do you imagine he'd feel? Reminds me of one of my characters. She accidentally marries a woman who's engaged to a man and ends up keeping both. I mean, why not both? Feng Xiao smiled. He'd be overjoyed and fancy us kindred spirits. Chubachu's lips curved in a smile. Now it'll be easier to approach the first prince. Later tonight, I'll find an opportunity to meet with him alone and tell him a few tales to win his trust. Maybe Yi Shun can't help us directly, but he can still provide us with many benefits. It's better to have as few enemies as possible. Chubachu's auditioning them for gay besties. Xiao Xian had earlier been sent to inquire for news. Soon enough, she returned with one of Jai Lian's maids. Jin Lian's maids, not Jai Lian's. Jin Lian's standing within the court was on shaky ground. She couldn't afford to draw any more suspicion by personally meeting with them, and had therefore sent her trusted maid, an ordinary Gokturk woman with a tanned complexion named Mugi. Fortunately, Mugi's message was discouraging. The Black Moon shaman was currently in seclusion. No one knew when he'd emerge. The shaman was responsible for communing with the gods and entered seclusion whenever he received a divine edict. At that point, he'd meditate until he received enlightenment. Jin Lian had no chance of seeing him until then. But she had also learned of another matter. After Jin Lian's guard's assassination attempt, Appa Kagan had fallen gravely ill, and the Black Moon shaman had asked that the Kagan be brought to him for treatment. The shaman had helped heal Appa Kagan, only then to fall ill himself. He announced to the public that he'd enter seclusion to recuperate. No one knew when he'd be well enough to return. In antiquity, shamanism and medicine had been one and the same. Later, as the study of medicine flourished in the Central Plains, producing countless generations of renowned doctors, the two practices had diverged. The Hans came to view shamanistic techniques as witchcraft used to harm others. But in the Khaganate, a shaman with knowledge of medicine would double as both the tribe's religious leader and most qualified physician. Feng Xiao sneered. What luck we're having. Jin Lian had tumbled from power overnight, while Appa Kagan's attitude had flipped completely. Now they couldn't even visit the one person they wished to see. It seemed heaven itself was standing against the Su dynasty, placing obstacles in their path over and over again. Tell her to draw me a map of the route between here and the house of the Black Moon Shaman, Feng Xiao said to Chubuchu. Chubuchu hesitated. You don't speak a word of Turkic. Even if you go, you'll have no way to communicate with him. You'll only alert our enemies of our plans. I just want to see if he's really recuperating in seclusion or if he's only pretending. If he really wishes to oppose us, we should kill him and be done with it. Feng Xiao, it seemed, had his own plans. Chubuchu nodded and didn't interfere further. His throat had become dry, so he picked up a slice of the honey melon the first prince had sent. A melon like honey, a hand like jade. Everyone appreciated beauty. Even Feng Xiao, who proclaimed himself the most radiant in all the land, found his eyes lingering on Chubuchu's hand. Before Chubuchu could notice, Feng Xiao shifted his gaze to Mugi, said carelessly, Shall we play act in front of her too? That way our relationship will be more convincing. Chubuchu glanced at him baffled. What do we gain from that? Jin Lian isn't a cut sleeve. Feng Xiao smiled and fluttered his fan. Then I'm relieved. Else I'd think Taoist Master Chu is truly yearning for me, ready to try his luck again the moment I drop my guard. I'm sure you'd hate that. Chubuchu blinked back at him. Qiao Xian had no idea what they meant by this, but jumped at once to the conclusion that Feng Xiao was harassing Chubuchu again. Upon closer look, Chubuchu's clothes and hair were a must, and there were suspicious marks dotting his neck. She was immediately furious. Lord Chief! Did this bastard lay his hands on you again? Feng Xiao laughed. Did I lay hands on him? Your Lord Chief was the one who laid his hands on me. The Lord Chief is a transcendent existence without peer in the world, Qiao Xian said with disdain. He might reject others, but he'd never be the one rejected. Why are you looking at me like that? Feng Xiao looked her up and down, then said curiously, My good woman, you have eyes, so how are you so blind? Why do you think I was the one who harassed him? He obviously was the one with ulterior motives who tried to force me. Why else would he be in that state? Xiao Xian laughed coldly, ready to argue once more, when Chubuchu interrupted them. Someone's coming. It was one of Appa Kagan's men sent to invite Chubuchu to the banquet that was about to begin. Qiao Xian's knowledge wasn't only in medicine. She was also apt at testing for poison. Beware wouldn't attack Chuba Chu in the open, and with her at his side, he was safe from any other underhanded tactics. The two of them set off for the banquet, hoping to use the chance to approach the first prince. As for Feng Xiao, he went alone to the Black Moon Shaman's residence under the cover of night. The bright moon hung in the brilliant starry sky. Distant mountains rose and fell. The withered grass stretched endlessly towards the horizon. Up on the hillside, above shimmering water lapping at the riverbank, stood a lone stone house. Swathed in the moonlight's gentle glow, it looked particularly desolate. The Black Moon Shaman was revered among the western Gokturks, and his residence overlooked the entire tribe, situated above even Appa Kagan's abode. The closer to the heavens, the better to communicate with the gods. Feng Xiao left behind the joyous shouts and firelight of the banquet. In a few effortless bounds, he landed on the hillside near the stone house, where he stopped to observe. The yurts of the capital clustered close to the river. This place was unlike the boundless yellow sands beyond the pass. It was lush with vegetation, a Jiangnan beyond the Great Wall, and a paradise on earth. The Gokturks didn't build pavilions and towers like the people of the Central Plains, but the fragrant grasses and the trees bathed in warm sunlight, together with the mountains, the river, and the colorful yurts, provided a raw beauty all of its own. Feng Xiao was in no hurry. He stood in place for a long while, sensing for danger. Once he was certain he was alone, he crept up to the stone house. The Black Moon Shaman lived by himself, his dwelling set apart from the tribe. They'd heard he had 2 attendants, but Feng Xiao saw neither hide nor hair of them. Perhaps they'd taken advantage of the shaman's seclusion to slack off. Or perhaps they'd slipped down to the banquet, hoping to partake in the excitement. Apparently, both were still young. Whatever the reason, they had left the Black Moon Shaman alone in that house. Feng Xiao took his time, alert to any change in his surroundings. Martial experts of his caliber were sensitive to danger. If another elite martial artist lurked in the house, Feng Xiao would sense it. He'd much rather wait for his enemy to come out on their own. But the stone house was tranquil. He could even hear the faint sound of snoring from within. It came in stops and starts as he listened, a sign that an elderly person in poor health lay sleeping within. Feng Xiao gave the wooden door a gentle push. It swung inward, revealing a pitch-black interior. Moonlight spilled around Feng Xiao's figure in the doorway and illuminated all sorts of bottles and pots. A long curtain hung further in, and where the moon couldn't reach, the sound of snoring came from behind it. A faint aroma wafted over. Feng Xiao took a sniff. He smelled medicine. Lavage, musk, and ginger. It wasn't poison. If the shaman was ill, as he claimed, this made sense. Yet Feng Xiao felt that something was wrong. The sound. He realized moments ago, outside the house, he'd been able to hear the sound of singing and dancing from the banquet in the distance. Now, he couldn't hear a single thing. A low laugh sounded at his side. You finally came. The voice echoed in his ears, seemingly inches away, yet drifting in from the distant horizon. Every word came from a different direction. In front, behind, to the left, to the right. It was everywhere, completely surrounding Feng Xiao. Ooh, spooky. All right, chapter 70, 109:15. 209. I was like, wait a minute. Actually, we'll do 209:30. Chapter 70. The voice was hoarse with age, roughened by the endless vicissitudes of life. But Feng Xiao understood his words. He spoke in Chinese. The tribe's shaman was old and wise, learned in all the ways of the world. Perhaps it was no surprise he spoke the language of the Central Plains. After all, the Western Gokturks also had Jin Liang, who even used their idioms and proverbs fluently. She was likely more literate in Chinese than the average commoner from the Central Plains. The voice came from all directions, but Feng Xiao didn't move, listening carefully to discern his opponent's position. Yet he found he couldn't pinpoint the speaker's location at all, unless there was more than one person spread out and speaking simultaneously. Did the Black Moon shaman have accomplices? Something seemed to have climbed onto his boot and was quickly crawling up his leg. Feng Xiao didn't look down. He circulated his internal energy, and the thing flew off, but more surged towards him. A moment later, they grabbed his legs, pinning him to the spot. A strong wind buffeted his face as murderous intent reared its head in the dark. Black Moon Shaman, I come as a friend, not an enemy. Why don't we sit down and talk? Feng Xiao said, but he didn't stop moving either. Legs pinned in place, he twisted his torso aside, narrowly dodging two blasts striking him from the front and back. He slammed both palms downward, and wind from his palms scored the unknown reptiles. Whatever it touched, they fell down dead, their corpses flying through the air and bouncing off Feng Xiao's clothes. I am sure he loved that. Feng Xiao, fastidious even in these circumstances, curled his lip. He'd be sure to repay the Black Moon shaman for this. But the Black Moon shaman never answered, and the laughter stopped. If not for the words he'd spoken at the beginning, Feng Xiao would have thought him mute. It seemed he had no interest in working together. Could it be that he was already Prince Adi's ally and an enemy of the Su dynasty? The creatures on the ground had been annihilated. Feng Xiao could move his feet again, but he soon realized he'd fallen into another quagmire. At some point, the light from the moon and stars had faded. The interior was an unrelieved black, and he couldn't see a thing. All was deadly silent, as if the voice from before had been naught but a hallucination. As he stared into the dark, a faint light flickered to life. It wavered in midair, blue and green interweaving like a will-o'-the-wisp, luring him closer. But what choice did he have? This house belonged to the Black Moon shaman. There might be countless traps and mechanisms here that he could deploy against Feng Xiao. Rather than remaining in enemy territory, it was better to seek a way out. Perhaps he could find a spot to break through. In the dim light, the room appeared only a dozen strides across, but Feng Xiao spent a full 15 minutes walking. The will-o'-the-wisp never changed, no closer or farther than before. Yet now there was a dense layer of fog around him, and he could no longer tell if he was within the house or without. At last, Feng Xiao understood. From the moment he'd climbed the hill and seen the stone house, he'd entered someone else's illusionary array. But this array was vast, its scale comparable to a mighty army laid out on the battlefield, the fences stretching on for thousands of miles. It exploited all the phantasma of the world to confuse and disorient its victims. From the sun and the moon, the starry skies, the mountains, the rivers and streams, down to each individual flower or blade of grass, even the very stones upon the ground, all could be utilized within this array. The deployer of such an array could enhance it with sound and smell. Just as when they'd spoken earlier, they'd aimed to distract Feng Xiao, pulling his focus into discerning their position and luring him deeper into the trap. But Feng Xiao hadn't lost his composure. He laughed. It seems the Black Moon shaman anticipated my arrival and specially prepared this banquet for me. How much did they purchase you for, I wonder? It must be a hefty sum if you won't even listen to what I can offer before deciding you wish to kill me." There was no answer. The will-o'-the-wisp remained in the mist, beckoning those seeking its light, drawing them closer. But if they stepped forward, 9 times out of 10, it would be into the jaws of death. There was a noise like the cracking of earth as something pushed out of the ground. Feng Xiao felt a cold touch at his ankle. He looked down and vaguely made out the white bones of a skeletal hand. Without batting an eye, Feng Xiao raised his other boot and crushed the hand underneath. More ghastly hands stretched forth from the ground like demons bursting from the underworld, clamoring to drag the living down to join them. Thousands of withered, bony hands grabbed for Feng Xiao, yet he strode forward, scattering the bones to dust with his internal energy and eliciting the ululating wails of the dead. I know ululating wails of the dead. Suddenly, the sounds of weeping turned into a piercing scream that rushed toward his back. He flung out a palm behind him, but met nothing. Ghostly howls rang out from all directions, shrill, mournful, and unbearable. Feng Xiao frowned, hesitating over whether to cover his ears and save himself from the sounds of those torturous voices. In that tiny pause, a ghostly figure drifted out of the mist, whisper silent. It was behind Feng Xiao in an instant, its palm thrusting forward, aiming right for the fatal acupoint in his back. Feng Xiao, trapped by the screams, remained motionless, unaware of the enemy about to strike. Kind of blessed with pictures this time. We've already had 3. Very cool picture. Definitely giving Wei Wuxian imagery. Very spooky. The royal yurt was filled with song and dance. Here the Khagan convened with his nobles and ministers for important meetings, received foreign guests, and threw banquets. The chaos of the day had been cleared away, and the great bonfire roared merrily in the center, a plump, tender lamb slowly turning over the flames. It was seasoned with various spices, and its tempting aroma filled the air as it dripped grease into the crackling fire, so fragrant the guests could practically taste it. A Kuchin woman in a flowing skirt danced gracefully around the bonfire, accompanied by the music of harps and pippas. Her sashes fluttered, the trailing satin creating a scene so enchanting as to bewitch any watcher. Chubuchu swept a glance over the yurt. Most of the Khagan's guests had already arrived. Some were watching the dance, while others whispered into the neighbors' ears. The atmosphere was lively and infectious, soaked in wine. Faux Air sat across from Chubuchu beside the second prince, Adi. The two were engaged in a lively discussion. They didn't even glance in his direction. In this relaxed environment, the previously reticent Prince Yi Shun seemed to take courage, opening his mouth to chat with Chubuchu. Does Chu Xiansheng not like the envoy of Ishbara Khagan? We are envoys of the Su dynasty. This man wishes to kill us and convince the Khagan to side with Ishbara. Does the first prince believe I should like him? The prince chuckled dryly, as if he too felt he'd made a mistake with his conversation starter. He changed the subject. Where's your deputy envoy tonight? He's feeling unwell, so we left him to rest. At that, a sly expression stole over the prince's face. He leaned closer and whispered, "Is it true that the two of you have that kind of relationship?" Chubuchu feigned ignorance. "I'm afraid I don't understand. The two of us have much in common, so we look after each other when we travel." The first prince gave him another knowing look. This one seemed to say, "All right, no need to explain, I understand. He's indeed an outstanding individual, but Liu Gu told me he seemed proud and overbearing. In broad daylight, he almost had his way with you." Allowing the first prince to make such assumptions was just what Chubuchu wanted. He smiled wryly. "Thank you for your concern. It's just..." Shook his head and sighed, neither confirmation nor denial, as if he couldn't say all he wanted to, leaving plenty of room for the first prince to imagine a long, complex, and messy relationship. The bait definitely worked, Truffle. Sure enough, Yi Shun's eyes filled with sympathy. "Even I can see you are in poor health. Are you unable to satisfy him? I have some virility-enhancing medicine at home. After the banquet, I'll have Li Yugu run some over to you." The corners of Chubuchu's lips twitched. He coughed twice, fighting back the urge to break character as he cupped his hands in gratitude. "Then I shall thank the prince in advance." The first prince had been soft-spoken from birth, and due to his secret proclivities, he had few bosom friends in the western cognate. Chubuchu was an outsider, but that also meant the prince didn't need worry about him spreading stories that could damage his reputation. And because they shared the same difficulties, the prince felt an instant connection to him. They chatted a while until Chubuchu noticed the Kagan's seat was still empty. "Is the Kagan not coming tonight?" Yishun looked embarrassed. "He'll be here in a bit, but a little late. Recently, a new concubine arrived from Kucha." A cold snort came from beside them. Jin Lian, lowering herself into the seat by Chubuchu, had heard the first prince's words. "So that's why I haven't seen this beautiful Kuchian dancer before. The new concubine must have brought her along." Jin Lian scoffed. "Not long after you left, Adi acquired several Kuchian women for my father," Yi Shun explained. "The one he took as his new concubine is even more beautiful than this dancer. Father was drawn to her right away. She's constantly at his side, and Adi is more favored than ever." Jin Lian frowned. "Why didn't I hear of this when I came back?" The prince smiled helplessly. "What could you have done, even if you had known? It's not as if you can go harass her. The new concubine slept in father's yurt every night until his recent bout of illness. He set up a separate yurt for her after, but he still summons her every evening. She's his great favorite." Now that there was a new flame, the old one had been abandoned. Jin Lian had been beautiful in her youth. She no longer relied on her looks to secure Appa Kagan's devotion, yet when she thought back to those days, her heart nodded with indescribable emotions. Chubuchu, too, was lost in thought, though he didn't share her sorrow. He was working out how to turn the topic to the Black Moon Shaman and coax some information from the first prince. It was then that he saw an attendant rush inside and whisper into Prince Adi's ear. The prince slammed his hand down on the table and rose, his face black with rage. "Someone has disturbed the Black Moon Shaman!" His gaze raked over the room as he roared. "The Black Moon Shaman is the sage of our tribe. Anyone who dares disturb him is the enemy of our cognate. Who did this? Come forward and confess, and I may still plead your case before my father. If you remain silent, you must forgive me for inflicting the harshest tortures upon you when we catch you." Festive atmosphere is gone. All the guests exchanged glances, stunned. Prince Adi's gaze landed on Chubuchu. What do you have to say, envoy of the Su dynasty? $25. Chapter 71. Chubu-Chu looked back at him in confusion. What is the prince trying to say? I'm afraid I don't follow. He turned to Jin Lian. Who is the Black Moon Shaman? The most prestigious and respected sage in our western cognate, as well as an important counselor to our Kugin. Of course, she'd already told Chubu-Chu all about the Black Moon Shaman, and was also beginning to wonder if Feng Xiao was behind this. But here in public, she gamely played along and answered Chubu-Chu, donning a look of shock. She turned to question Adi. Who dares disturb the Black Moon Shaman? I shall report it to Kagan this instant. Adi snorted. I've sent my own people to inform him. What happened? Yishun asked. The attendant who entered with the report stepped forward. A fire broke out near the stone house, and we heard sounds of fighting. If you step out, you can see it from here. The fire's been put out, but the villain who set it has yet to be caught. The shaman has been injured. A physician has gone to tend to him. I'll go see him at once, Yishun declared. Adi held a hand out to stop him. No need. The physician is with him. What more could you do? Such a thing is unprecedented. Tomorrow is the day of the tribe's conference. These outsiders arrived today, and this incident occurred this very evening. There's no need to search. The criminal is among us here. Yi Shun frowned. Everyone here is an honored guest invited by our father himself. This second prince never held his elder brother in high regard. He immediately dismissed him. Several people here were not invited. Glanced at Chubu-Chu and Xiao Xian and then said darkly, If I find you had a hand in this, you won't escape my wrath. Jin Lian felt a spike of irritation. What did he mean, not invited? Chubu-Chu had been invited by none other than herself. Adi might as well have said her word meant nothing. Though she'd found things challenged on her return, she was still a concubine of the Kagan. This went beyond a lack of respect. Adi regarded her as a thorn in his side and wished to rid himself of her. He was considering what to do when a loud bang cut through her thoughts. Chubu-Chu had slammed a hand on the table and risen to his feet. Though the Kagan has yet to form an alliance with the Su dynasty, he has welcomed us as honored guests. You accused us without evidence, spitting in the face of Great Su. Even if we should be convicted, the Kagan must do it himself. I demand to see the Kagan. Adi sneered. If the Kagan were here, he'd say the same as me. Do you represent the Kagan? Asked Chubu-Chu, his tone cutting. The Kagan called us his honored guests just this afternoon. Are you saying his words hold no weight? Adi too slapped the table and roared. When did I say that? Chubu-Chu raised his voice. Your father yet lives. He is the ruler of the Western Cognate, and you have an elder brother ahead of you. You have no claim to any authority here. Though the volume at which one spoke had little to do with the righteousness of one's arguments, when it came to men like Adi, the important thing was to grasp the moment. Chubu-Chu was a tall man. Though he was somewhat thin and frail, his stormy expression was fiercely intimidating. Adi flushed with rage and reared back, ready to strike him. Xiao Xian and Jin Lian would never allow such a thing. They sprang up and blocked Adi. Watching, Prince Yishun prickled with envy. Not, of course, over the women who stepped forward to protect this man. He was envious that Chubu-Chu, despite being a foreigner, had the courage to stand up to his arrogant younger brother inside the royal yurt, and the presence to hold his own. Still, Prince Adi had no fear of this wan and sickly Sioux envoy. The Sioux dynasty had sent him as their representative. That not only demonstrated the Central Plains were stretched so thin they had to send a woman and an invalid to plead for them in foreign lands, their cognate had held the upper hand. As for the beautiful woman at Chubachu's side, she'd managed to stomp him into the ground earlier today, so he conceded that she had some skill. Once he dealt with Chubachu, however, she would have no choice but to throw herself at his feet and beg for mercy. Doubt it. He laughed savagely, summoning his guards with a wave. The Kagan isn't here. I call the shots. Guards, seize the Sioux envoy. The third one is missing. He must be the culprit behind the fire. Wait! Before Jin Lian could protest, Yi Shun had spoken up. They are the guests of my father, the Kagan, he said, voice rising. No matter what happened, we must wait for father's arrival to make any decision. Yet at that very moment, Appa Kagan's personal attendant slipped through the door. The Kagan was feeling unwell, he said, and had retired early. He left the two princes to host the banquet. Anything else could wait until the conference tomorrow. Those who knew the Kagan's habits glanced at each other, all thinking the same thing. Unwell? As if. He was obviously drowning himself in the pleasures of the flesh with his new woman. Prince Yu Shun drew himself up. In that case, we shall wait until my father, the Kagan, arrives tomorrow before interrogating these envoys. No, cried Adi. The Black Moon Shaman is the religious leader of our tribe. Any aggression towards him must be punished. By tomorrow, the culprit will have slipped away. If he suffered fighting the shaman, he may be injured and unable to run tonight. I've sent out my guards, but who's to say he's not hiding in one of the yurts? Search everyone and we'll find him. Yi Shun was furious. All the envoys here are honored guests. How could you be so discourteous towards them? Kucha and Kuchu, though ostensibly separate nations bordering the Western Khaganate, were effectively vassal states. Regardless of their displeasure at the second prince's orders, there wasn't much they could say. Their silence was expected. It was the first prince's behavior that was surprising. At times like this, he had always been practically mute, never uttering a word of protest. Yeah, the Kagan's really not helping. Adi narrowed his eyes and stepped forward, looming over his elder brother. His father is not here, so I'll give the orders. But Yi Shun didn't back down. Instead, he spoke up again. You're not even a Yabgegu. Father's given you no position at all. I am the elder. If anyone has the final say here, it's me. Adi laughed in anger. You're so set on protecting these Sioux envoys. What kind of deal have you made with them? Silence! A woman entered, hair tucked beneath a beaded headdress. You claim Yi Shun has no say? Then what about me? Surely I do. Though this was Chubachu's first time seeing her, it wasn't hard to guess her identity. The first prince, who never dared speak up to his younger brother, had opposed him for the first time tonight. Now the greater Khatun, who rarely dipped into politics, had shown herself as well. The Dr. Khatun held immense power. In the Kagan's absence, she could command his authority in the tribe. Though she'd never made use of this privilege, that didn't mean it had lapsed. Adi stared at this mother and her son. Two people who had never stepped out of their shadows before today were now barring his way as if to intentionally provoke him. His anger turned into fury. The Black Moon Shaman has been harassed and injured by foreigners. Who will take responsibility for this? Does the Khatun wish to shoulder the blame? Can you bear to? When the Kagan is not here, the authority to make decisions is mine, the Khatun said coolly. Sit down. It seemed the Khatun's sudden appearance hadn't merely been to support her son. But if Adi conceded here, it would erode what small authority he held. I refuse, he said resolutely. Chubachu stepped forward. I have nothing to do with this attack on your shaman, he averred. I'm willing to swear an oath to heaven before your wolf god. If I speak any falsehood, may lightning strike me where I stand. May the avatars of the wolf god tear me to pieces the very moment I step from this yurt. Everyone gasped at the sheer ruthlessness of this oath. Even Adi was briefly stunned into silence. The Gok Turks placed great importance on oaths. Such words were not to be taken lightly. Yet Chubachu didn't stop there. He fixed his gaze on Adi, eyes blazing. Your Highness has been targeting us since the moment we arrived. You've already decided we're the culprits. Do you dare claim you have no ulterior motives? Animosity between the Sioux dynasty and the Gokturk aristocracy is what Ishbar wishes to see. Is the second prince Ishbar's man? Adi was furious. Nonsense, he roared. Then you swear as well, Chubachu pressed him. Swear that all you do is for the good of the tribe, that you have no ulterior motives. Before the eyes of all, Chubachu had turned the tables on the second prince and put him in a difficult position. Several of his close friends opened their mouths to speak, but Jin Lian beat them to it. I agree. Envoy Chu has sworn. The second prince should swear as well if his conscience is clear. A Gokturk attendant rushed in, looking flustered. When he saw the standoff within the royal yurt, he stopped in his tracks. Adi reacted as if a blade had been lifted from his neck, desperate to move the focus off himself. He shouted, What happened now? Quickly, speak! The attendant knelt on the ground. The Black Moon Shaman's injuries were severe, he said in a quivering voice. He's departed for the heavens. The assembly stared in shock. The shaman's injury had been presented as a minor incident, yet in the blink of an eye it had become a murder. All color had drained from the Khatun's face. Chubachu and Jinlian both frowned, and even Xiao Xian was speechless. Meng Xiao, she thought, had really overdone it this time. Adi had frozen when he'd heard the news. Now he exploded. These people killed the shaman! Whoever defends them is their accomplice! We are innocent, exclaimed Chubachu. Investigate us as you will. However, I have one request. He stared at the second prince. If his highness finds no evidence, he will make a public apology and treat us as his honored guests. Adi sneered, and if I find that your companion killed our shaman, I will cut off your heads and hang them from the flagpoles, then toss your corpses into the wilderness to be gnawed by wolves. He waved a hand and called for his men. Search! I want that man found! Turning on his heel, he strode toward Chubachu's yurt with his men in tow. Xiao Xian stepped up to Chubachu. The second prince has had his sights set on us from the beginning, she whispered. Could he have killed the shaman himself? Chubachu hummed non-committally. Behind them, the Gokturk guards had moved to surround their party, sealing off any escape. Undoubtedly another order from the second prince. The envoys of the other tribes didn't disperse, nor did the Khatun and her son. The whole group followed Adi to the Sioux envoy's yurt. Yet even with the camp in such an uproar, Appa Kagan didn't once come out for a look. Your Kagan doesn't even bestir himself for the death of the Black Moon Shaman, Chubachu asked Jin Lian. Jin Lian laughed bitterly. I had someone take me to see the Kuchian beauty earlier today. She's indeed an unequaled gem. No wonder the Kagan is captivated by her. Oh, I bet it's Meow Lian. Meow Lian, I think is her name. What do you want to bet? It's Meow Lian. She frowned at Adi's back, his fierce strides eating up the ground before him. Do you really have nothing to do with this? She whispered to Chubachu. Of course not, Chubachu answered her with a clear and limpid gaze. I swore an oath, didn't I? Rather than doubting me, perhaps you should wonder about the second prince, who wouldn't even do this. Jin Lian's suspicions vanished. She apologized. I was overly concerned about Xiansheng. Listening to this exchange, Xiao Xian's mouth twitched, and she bit back a few words. She did speak some Turkic, though she wasn't as fluent as Chubachu. When Chubachu had sworn, he clearly said I, not we. The conditions of his oath didn't encompass any trouble Feng Xiao might have caused, but this wouldn't have occurred to the Gokturks. In their eyes, Feng Xiao and Chu were one entity. Those who failed to pay close attention to Chu's words often found it coming back to bite them. Feng Xiao understood this acutely. Unfortunately, he wasn't present to remind Jin Lian. Adi led his men to search Chu's yurt. Sure enough, they found no trace of Feng Xiao. Now certain that Feng Xiao was the culprit, he raised a clamor calling for Chu and his companions to be punished. Jin Lian once again stepped forward to oppose him. Feng Xiao hadn't been found, let alone caught. Red-handed. The prince's insistence on their guilt only proved he was chomping at the bit to have them killed. Since the start of the banquet, Foer had remained seated, not making a sound nor kicking them when they were down. Xiao Xian had almost suspected he'd swapped personalities. Now, the foremost Gokturk experts suddenly emerged to watch the excitement. More than the Khotun and her son were witnessing this. In addition to Foer, envoys from the various tribes had all followed them. No matter how high-handed Adi might be, he couldn't convict Chu's group so hastily without drawing criticism. Tomorrow's 8 Tribes Conference was meant to consolidate the power of the Western Khaganate. After a brief conference with his confidants, Adi forced himself to calm. He stood outside Chu's yurt with his hands on his hips, waiting for news as his men continued to search. Prince Adi, that man is a powerful martial artist. Nor weaker than I, Foer had finally spoken. He hadn't had a change of heart at all. He'd only been waiting for the opportune moment. If he wasn't injured, he'd have appeared by now. He won't make it far if he's wounded. He must have hidden himself. Perhaps you should check the storerooms and stables. Right, Adi perked out. Do as he said, quickly. Go to my father's yurt as well and inquire, lest the criminal snuck in. By this point, Xiao Xian had guessed Feng Xiao had met with something unexpected on his visit to the Black Moon Shaman, resulting in the shaman's death and his own injury. Feng Xiao was a powerful martial artist. He was unlikely to be caught, but he couldn't remain hidden forever. The moment he turned up injured, he'd inevitably be accused of the shaman's murder. Adi and Foer were both eyeing them hungrily. There was no chance they'd let them go. Their situation had become rather thorny. Xiao Xian glanced at Chu, but his face was placid, as if nothing was amiss. She couldn't remember ever seeing Chu panic. Xiao Xian felt a surge of admiration as she whispered, Did you think of a countermeasure? Chu shook his head minutely. Then how can you be so calm? Xiao Xian looked back at him, puzzled. Grabbing her hand, Chu sketched a few words in her palm. It's all an act. Xiao Xian thought it best to say no more. What if he's at, the bathhouse or something? Because, he was fighting what seemed to be, crawling bugs and hands grasping for him. What if they find him in a bathhouse? Or the river bathing? Just as the second prince was growing impatient, one of the men he'd sent out finally returned. They'd located Feng Xiao. Overjoyed, the prince shot a look at Chu that practically screamed, I'd like to see you wiggle out of this one. He turned to the guards. Where is he? Take me there. Yet unexpectedly, the guard looked conflicted and began to stammer. Out with it, snapped the second prince, unless you want to be considered an accomplice as well. Incredible. They hadn't even laid eyes on the man, yet they'd already decided his guilt. But at the news that Feng Xiao had been found, Chu relaxed. His lips curved in a faint smile. He raised the horsewhip he carried, ready to strike the guard where he stood. The man shrank away, blurting, He's in your highness's yurt! What rubbish! How could he be in my yurt? The second prince's expression was thunderous. Ah, so it's the second prince who has colluded with the Sioux envoys, said Chu leisurely. Why not say so before? You were attacking your own ally all along. Ridiculous! Adi's expression was grim as he strode toward his yurt. Flanked by his guards, he viciously threw open the door. His face, previously dark as pitch, turned green from his collar to the tip of his ears. And that is where we're ending for tonight. You'll have to find out tomorrow what happens, because we have that different schedule this week. So you'll only have to wait till tomorrow. Good night. See you tomorrow, Esper Lady. Good night, Truffle. Good night, Cookielicious. Good night, Annika. Good night, Mo Mars Rover. Good night, Galactic, if you're still here. Yeah. We'll be doing it tomorrow because my mom's birthday is Thursday. So yeah. Good night, and I will see you tomorrow, and we will finish the book tomorrow. Good morning. I'll see you tomorrow evening, or tomorrow morning then. Bye. And for everyone watching later, I hope you enjoyed as well. Good night.